Let's pick up where we left off in the previous video by switching to the Quads tool. Just think of the Quads tool as an extrusion tool. You cannot build a patch without at least having one polygon to start from. You need something to be able to extrude from initially. With the Quads tool, you have a few different options as to how it extrudes. Trapezoidal, direct, parallel, or two-click method. The two-click method is the default, and essentially what you do is you hover over the edge that you want to build from, click, and then hover till you find your third point of your polygon, and then your fourth, and you can quickly build this way. If I wanted to start from here, I would hover over that edge, but if I change my mind, I can come back over here and start from this side. You see how it got a little bit confused, so just hover over that edge and just continue building. I'll hit escape to drop that, and we'll change it to direct. So let's click. You can hover to the top or the bottom, and it will change the angle a little bit on the fly. This method requires only a single click to extrude, and thus it's faster than the two clicks method, but not quite as precise. Each method has its own unique advantages. Let's try a different one. Parallel. Very similar, but you'll notice how the edge that's extruded is parallel to the edge you started from. So even if I go up here, you can see it's still parallel to this initial edge. Hit escape and then undo. When you're starting from scratch and you see the yellow highlight, you will need to click that initial edge. But once you get started and you see the white highlighted edge, there's no need to click on it because 3D Coat presumes you want to continue from the last extruded edge or an adjacent one. Now let's look at the Points and Faces tool. This was similar to the Strokes tool in that you can quickly plot out the general topology or the layout of your polygons before you actually commit them. In this case, you just click to create initial point. And that tells 3D Coat to create a vertex here. In order to lay down a point, all you have to do is left mouse button click. I can hover over the area where I want to create a polygon. When I see the preview that I like, I can right click to create it. And just as I can with the other tools, you can right click over a point to tweak it on the fly. If I want to reposition this point, I can right click and drag. If I want to remove it, I can hit the delete key while I am hovering over it and it's white. Okay. Right click. So you can make fairly quick work of this. And if you want, you can also create triangles if you need. Just hover around the apex of the triangle you wish to create and right click. The really nice thing about this particular tool is it has a multifunction capacity built in, and that means when you hold down the control key or the control shift key, you have options to invoke other tools on the fly while Points and Faces is active. So let's say if I wanted to quickly switch to the Quads tool, I can change that. So let's change that to Quads. Whatever extrusion method I have chosen here, that's what it's going to use when I invoke it in the Points and Faces tool. Let's go ahead and hold down the control key. So I lit up from the control key, and now I'm back in the Points and Faces tool. The default is split rings, and as you're working here, you may need to add some supporting geometry. So I can hold down the control key, left mouse click, and now I've created an edge loop. Perhaps now I want to slide edge loop, so I can select that from the menu. I can hold down the control shift keystroke combination, and I can slide. Control key to quickly add loops. Control shift. I'm going to try and show the cap tool, but first let me delete a polygon, then use the split rings tool to set up this example. I'll now select the cap tool. You can see the preview of how it's going to cap the open space when I left mouse button click. It's going to weld all the edges at the very center of the opening, and sometimes that may not be what you want. If you hold down the shift key, and left mouse button click, you can see that it created an N-gon. Let's select the Delete Polygons tool and delete that once again. Go back to Points and Faces. If you've created a number of points and later decide that you don't want to use them, you can clear them all with one command rather than having to hover over each individual point and delete them one by one. To do that, you can simply choose Clear Points in the Special section here. Alright, now let's go down to Delete Edges. You can delete individual edges one at a time like that, or you can hold down the Control key and delete entire contiguous loops. So let's hold down the Control key. As you can see, this is a fairly proficient way of applying some poly reduction to your Retopo meshes. Alright, let's go to the Select tool. In the toolbar, you have different sub-object selections to choose from, as well as the auto mode. You can hover over a sub-object, and when you left mouse button click on it, it's automatically going to switch you to that sub-object mode. You can create a hotkey for auto if you want to quickly get back to that, or create hotkeys for these sub-object elements to match what you're used to in your host 3D application. You can do that by hovering over it and hitting the End key on your keyboard and then making that assignment. Okay, let me point something else out here with the Strokes tool. There are times where you may want to create a specific and precise shape. Let's say, for example, you want to create a perfectly round circle or ellipse. You can go to the E panel and select it. You can left mouse button click and drag out to scale. You can also hold the space bar to move it on the fly, just like you would in Photoshop. Then just release the left mouse button. I'll drag out another one. Let's create a circular array of polygons by creating a number of different circles. And then I'll go to the E panel and select a brush to create just one line. You can hit enter and it's created a radial pattern there. You can use a polygonal lasso tool to create some very intricate shapes very quickly. For example, this allows a user to create straight lines at any given angle. It doesn't have to be constrained to 90 degrees or 45 degrees or anything like that. Just double click at the end. The same thing here. Click, double click, click, double click, double click. There we go. And go back to Select, Faces. Just drag Select. Delete those. Now let's look at the brush tool. We can use this basically like we would with the Move brush in the Sculpt workspace and also in the Tweak room. So you can just hover over an area and quickly tweak it. This is very helpful when you want to snap a particular part of a mesh that has maybe been modified in the Sculpt room in some regard. You can just tap an area to have 3D Coat auto snap it right where your brush is. It will leave the rest of the mesh undisturbed. Using the brush to snap in a localized fashion helps you to avoid some of the errors that can commonly occur when snapping the entire mesh. That would include tight spaces where you have a lot of vertices bunched together, or if your vertices are right on the edge of an opening, then you can get snapping errors as well. In other words, if it falls off the edge, it doesn't really know where to snap to. The snap tool is what you would want to use if you need to conform the entire Retopo mesh or the selected sub-elements to the underlying voxel object. The last thing I want to point out about the brush tool is that you can hold down the Shift key and smooth beneath your brush, just like you can in the Sculpt, Tweak, or the Paint workspaces. So let me hold down the Shift key, and I can right-click and drag up to increase the smoothing effect, or right-click and drag down to decrease it. And as I brush, you can see the effect that it has. With Auto Snap checked, it's going to try and keep the vertices snapped to the surface as you smooth. You'll also notice that if you have Keep Bounds while smoothing checked, it will preserve the outer edges while smoothing everything on the inside. Alright, so let me uncheck that. And now you can smooth the boundaries as well. So that's a quick look at using the brush tool. We're going to stop the video right here and we'll pick up in the next one. So stay tuned and thank you for watching.